Snackbars and toasts are the most used ways of notifying users about something within an app. The problem is that snackbars are not very modifiable, and toasts, which are coming from native Android, are not even present in Flutter by default. Flash is a highly customizable, powerful, and easy to use alerting package for Flutter. It offers snackbars, toasts, and even dialogs. Hello, welcome to Reso Coder, where you are getting prepared for real app development so that you will get freelance clients or a job and be confident about the apps you build. So subscribe and hit the bell to join us on our quest for becoming in-demand Flutter developers. In this app, we are going to demonstrate all that the Flash package has to offer. So you're going to learn how to show a toast using a Flash package, also how to show a snackbar, which is dismissed by default after 4 seconds, but it also can be dismissed by dragging it either to the side or down, or even by pressing the back button here. And then also how to show a dialog using the Flash package, because why not? If it can be shown, let's show it, even though these dialogs are kind of like not really all that important in my opinion, because dialogs work quite well even out of the box what Flutter has to offer. But since you can display dialogs with Flash, let's also learn how to do that. So as you can see, the Flash package has some really nice customizable snackbars and toasts and even dialogs which it can display. So let's get right into it. However, before we do that, you should know that you have a starter project available inside of the written tutorial, to which you can get from the link in the video description, so that you will be able to have all of this code already written for you, all of these buttons and pages, so that you can just jump in to the starter project and follow along with this tutorial. Also, the written tutorial, apart from the starter project, also contains all of the code written in this video, links to the Flash library, links to all kinds of other resources which I mentioned in the written tutorial, and overall over there you will be able to go through this lesson at your own pace. Before anything else, the first step is to add the Flash package. Currently it's at version 1.3.1, so let's add it as a dependency into pubspec YAML. But also you should know that there is a version 1.4.0 null safety available, so you are covered once null safety hits stable. Because as of recording this tutorial, if you cannot tell, null safety is still in beta. So let's first focus on displaying toasts, which once we finish them will look something like this. They will have a gradient, they will be displayed for 4 seconds, they will have a white text displayed inside of them, and also they will persist when we navigate between pages. So toasts are short message pop-ups that come from native Android, where they can be shown and also remain visible even when the app is not in the foreground, when it's not being used. This is not possible with the Flash library. Toasts are really just Flutter widgets. They are not communicating with the native Android in any kind of way, so they're also cross-platform. Therefore, if you would be interested in showing the native Android toasts, you have linked to a different library in the written tutorial. No matter if you are showing toasts, snackbars, or dialogs, you always want to call show Flash, which comes from the Flash library, pass in the context, and also specify a builder, which will grant you a build context and also a Flash controller. You can also specify a duration inside of the show Flash call. So duration, for example, let's set it to const duration seconds 4, something like that. If you don't specify duration, it will be indefinitely shown. So you have to make sure that you have a way to dismiss that Flash programmatically, otherwise it's never going away. We're also going to get to that later on. This builder returns a widget. While it really can return any kind of widget, for example, let's say return container with width 200, height 200, colors red, something like that. Save that and run the app. Now when we would try to show this kind of a container toast, you see that a container is displayed, the width and height are not respected at all, and it's also looking kind of weird, and we probably do not want to just show containers. Because of that, there is a widget called Flash that you should pretty much always use to return from this Flash builder. So let's return Flash. It also has a default constructor, but it has named constructors too, and you should be using them whenever you can. You have bar and also dialog constructors. So bar obviously is for Snackbars and dialog is for dialogs, but which one should we use when we want to show a toast? Well, if you think about it, a toast behaves more like a dialog than a snackbar. So let's use the dialog constructor. We need to pass in a controller, so we're just going to pass in the controller from the method parameters. And apart from the controller, which is a required parameter, there is also the child, which is required. And the child can be really any kind of a widget. And now I mean it for real, not just like with the builder return type, which should indeed be Flash if you are not brave enough to deal with all kinds of intricacies of the Flash library. With the child, you really have a free hand. For now, let's just say that we are going to return a text, which is going to say this is a toast, and it's also going to have some basic styling inside of it so that it looks up to par. For example, the color will be white and font size will be 16. And if you are interested again in this code, you can get it from the written tutorial. So now let's go to the app and show this toast. You can see that you basically cannot see anything because by default, the toast itself is shown in the center, which surely does not help. And also the toast's background is white, and we have specified that the text should be also white, so obviously we cannot see anything. So how can we go around that? Well, we could specify also something inside of the child and make it have a background different than white, but really for the widget which contains the child, we should style it directly inside of this Flash dialog widget. For example, we can specify a background gradient and set it to linear gradient, for example, which will have colors indigo, and also colors dot deep purple. With that done, now when we try to show the toast again, we can actually see its content. This is a toast, but it still does not look exactly how it looked like in the example app. It should be pushed downwards, it should be shown at the bottom center of the screen, and also the text should be padded. So let's add padding. Edge insets all 8 should be good. So now it looks something like this. There is immediately more space, but still it doesn't look quite right because the corners of the toast are not rounded. In order to round the corners, we can specify a border radius. So let's do just that. On the Flash widget, we are going to say border radius and set it to border radius all. Circular 8 will be the radius. Now it looks much better. Whoops, toast. But it's still not at the bottom. So how can we push it down? Well, if you use the dialog named constructor, you have the ability to specify alignment of the dialog or toast in this case. And the alignment is the default one coming from Flutter. So let's just say bottom center. And since it's going to be at the bottom, we should probably also add some margin to the bottom so that it's not going to be flush with the bottom of the screen. To do that, we can add a margin. So it's going to be const edge insets only bottom, and let's say 48 logical pixels. So now it looks something like this, which indeed looks much better than it did at the beginning. So we can now successfully show the toast, but here's one problem. Or maybe it's not a problem, it depends on what you categorize as problem, but for me, I definitely do not like this behavior, because when we now press this show toast button rapidly, you can see that multiple toasts are displayed at once and they overlap, and basically this toast is never going to disappear. So it's definitely not 4 seconds. You see that multiple toasts had to disappear in order to not have anything on the screen. Some libraries which operate with toasts or snack bars have a functionality built in that you cannot have multiple toasts or snack bars displayed at one time, and some libraries even have a message queue which remembers the toasts that you want to show, and then it displays them only if the previous one is already hidden. So for example, if we pressed show toast 2 times, it would show 1 toast, then it would wait until this first toast is not visible, and then it would display the second toast automatically. This kind of a functionality is, however, not built into Flash. I'm going to show you a very simple way to prevent multiple toasts from being displayed at once. However, I'm not going to really delve into the message queue and all kinds of more advanced topics. However, you have a link in the written tutorial which will take you to an example project where this message queue is implemented with the Flash library. So if you're interested, check it out from the written tutorial. In order to simply prevent multiple flashes, dialogs, or even snack bars from being shown at one time, it's very simple. Inside of the state of a stateful widget, let's just create a boolean which will be called isToastShown, and let's set it to false by default. And then inside of here, as you can see, we have an async onPressed handler. We are going to check if toast is shown, then we want to return. So we short circuit the execution of this method so that showFlash is not called. Then we want to await showFlash, and also before we even show it, we actually want to set isToastShown to be true. And then lastly, after we have awaited for showFlash, and this future coming from showFlash completes once Flash is fully hidden, only then are we going to set isToastShown to be false. And with this done, simple code change, we can now press show toast, and when we press it multiple times, another toast will not be shown until the previous one was hidden. So that's definitely a nice change. All right, now let's go to snack bars. Showing snack bars is very similar to showing toasts, because again, you need to call showFlash. Actually, we can copy this showFlash fully and paste it into showSnackBar button handler. Let's remove await because we actually don't care if there are multiple snack bars shown, but the principle still remains the same if you want to have just one snack bar showing at a time. And we are actually going to completely scratch the return widget of the builder method, because instead of calling flash.dialog, we're now going to call flash.bar. Because we are working with snack bars, obviously. So let's again specify the controller, and also the child should be specified. So while previously you've seen that you can specify, for example, padding or any other kind of a widget as a child of a flash, when it comes to snack bars, it's actually quite useful to use a widget coming from the Flash library. You can specify any kind of widget again, for example, container or anything else, but it's much better and more expedient, easy to use, if you use a flash bar, because it looks good out of the box and it's easy to configure. So why would we not use it? It has one required parameter, which is the message. So let's set it to be a text. This is something. So this one is the only required parameter. Therefore, now we can show the snack bar and it looks something like this. This is something, it's completely white. You cannot even see the background properly, I would guess. You can also not dismiss it. Only by dragging down can you dismiss it, but not by dragging to the side. So let's make it pop much more so that it will look something like this. Definitely it's looking much better than the default snack bar, which you could have seen a while ago. Before we worry too much about the content of the snack bar or flash bar, let's focus on the encompassing widget. So on the background, on the animation, on the border radius, and so on, just like before with the dialog. So we'll probably want to specify a background. So let's again specify it to be a background gradient, yellow and amber. So it's gonna look much better immediately. Then when you use the bar constructor, named constructor, you have another specific parameter that you can set, and that is position. It can be flash position, which is either top or bottom. By default, it's obviously bottom, but when you set it to be top, the flash bar will be displayed from the top like this. But let's set it to bottom. If you don't specify it, it's automatically set to bottom. Then another parameter that you can set is enable drag. By default, it's true, but if you set it to false, you are not gonna be able to drag the snack bar down to dismiss it. It's just not working. But again, by default, it's true, so let's leave it at true. If you want to be able to drag the snack bar horizontally, you need to specify the horizontal dismiss direction, which is of type horizontal dismiss direction. And it can be either end to start, to either way, so horizontal, so either left or right, or start to end. So let's say start to end, which in our case with our English locale, it's going to be from left to right. But if you have languages which are written the opposite way, it's gonna be flipped. So now we can dismiss it like this by dragging from left to the right. Another parameter that we can obviously set is margin and border radius and all kinds of things which are kind of mandatory if you want to style anything. So we are setting margin to be 8 and border radius to be also 8. So now it's gonna look something like this. As you can see, it's not taking up the whole screen, and also it's rounded, so it looks as if it was floating kind of. The animation which happens when the snack bar is showing is not very appealing, so let's change the curves of the animation. You can change the forward animation curve and also reverse animation curve for when the snack bar is shown or hidden respectively. So you can experiment with these curves however you want. I have found that ease out back and slow middle work quite nice, and they definitely look interesting. But again, if you want to get this code and study it at your own pace and even copy it into your projects, you can get it from the written tutorial. So with these kinds of curves, what we now can do is show the snack bar, and it sort of bounces up and down once it's shown, and then it slowly, kind of with the slow middle, goes away. Now, what about the child, which is a flash bar? Well, it has a bunch of properties which we can set too. For example, it has the title. The title should be a larger text than the message. So let's set it to be a text saying that you are seeing a snack bar, and let's set the style to be headline 6. This is the same style that is present inside of the app bar's title, headline 6 from the material theme. So now when we show it, looks like this. Then there are a bunch of other properties which we can set. For example, primary action should be, in my opinion, an icon button, but you are not restricted in doing that. You can make it any kind of a widget, but in my opinion, icon button is the way to go. And let's specify icon. So icon, icons, AC unit, for example. And let's also specify unpressed. So now we're gonna see it at the right of the snack bar. And by default, it's blue because the flash overrides the color of the icons, which by default is kind of black or grayish. This color is overridden by the primary color coming from your theme. And the primary color by default in Flutter when you are using Material app is, of course, blue. Then you can also specify an icon for the flash bar. So let's set it to icon, icons info. By default, it looks like this. So it's blue and it's also pulsating, which I don't like to see. So in order to change its color, we can just say colors black. But how can we change it so that it's not pulsating? Because now it's gonna be black, but it still sort of pulsates. So what we can do is should icon pulse, set it to false. And while we are at it, let's also, for good measure, show progress indicator, because why not? Set it to true, and it's gonna be looking like this. You may think that we have covered all the parameters that there are for the flash bar, but you would be wrong, because there are actually many more parameters that you can set, but I will leave it up to you to figure them out all fully. I think that these are enough so that you can see the extent in which you can modify the flash bar that comes from this library. In other words, it's really customizable. But here's the thing. If we now show the flash bar or snack bar and navigate back, we can navigate back and then again back to the previous page, but the snack bar has been shown all throughout our navigating between pages. So how can we make the snack bar to be popped when we press the back button? Well, that's possible, but it needs some setup. Firstly, we need to set the persistent parameter on the show flash method to be false. By default, it's true, and persistent in this sense means that it persists between navigation changes. It doesn't react to the navigator.pop call. So once we set it to persistent and we try to show the snack bar as it is, you can see that nothing is shown. And if we go into the debug console, we're going to see a very nasty error saying that overlay can't be the root overlay when persistent is false. It's coming from the Flash library, obviously. So what has gone wrong? Well, this requires a bit of an explanation in how the Flash library shows these widgets on top of other widgets, because if you think about it, there needs to be some kind of an overlay, right? Because for example, toast is shown on top of the scaffold background. So there needs to be some sort of a stack, some sort of an overlay going on behind the scenes. And that's precisely what's happening. Individual flashes or snack bars or toes or dialogs are shown as an overlay entry within an overlay. And if you're interested to learn more about overlay, if you have not heard of it yet, it's a default Flutter widget, and I have a link to the documentation in the written tutorial. These overlay entries within an overlay are used so that these flashes, flash bars, can be displayed on top of other widgets. And what's up with the root overlay? Well, the material widget, which is at the root of our app, or the material app widget to be precise, or even widgets app, if you are not using the material style for your app, contains a root overlay. But to be able to pop the snack bar, we cannot just be using this top level root overlay. We need to have an overlay specific to the page in which the snack bar is located. So in other words, we need to have an overlay specific to the Flash page. We need to wrap the Flash page with an overlay. So we could wrap it like wrapping the scaffold with an overlay, but in my opinion, it's easier to just wrap the whole Flash page with an overlay as we are navigating to it from the home page. This code is obviously available from the starter project. So to do that, let's just say wrap with widget overlay, but we cannot specify Flash page as a child, but instead this has initial entries. It needs to take in an overlay entry, and this takes a builder, which grants us a context, and it's gonna return the Flash page. So at the end of all this code, we're gonna have something looking like this. Overlay, which has initial entries, overlay entry, which builds a Flash page. So now save this and also hard restart for good measure. Now we can go to the Flash page and show a snack bar. It's gonna be shown, and when we press the back button, it's gonna be dismissed because navigator.pop is called. So we cannot go back to the home page without first dismissing programmatically by calling navigator.pop the snack bar. So we have covered toasts and also snack bars, which can actually be shown on top of each other, as you can see right now. What we have not covered yet are regular dialogs. So again, I think that the show dialog method, which comes by default from Flutter, show dialog, is plenty enough, and using alert dialogs for widgets, so something like child alert dialog is again plenty enough for your dialog needs. I would not use the Flash library specifically for showing these kinds of alert dialogs. However, I do understand why you may want to use the Flash library for showing dialogs when you are already using it for these nice snack bars and toasts. The reason for it may be that you might want to use just one single API for everything, so that you can, for example, share styles in between your Flash bars, snack bars, and also Flash bar dialogs. Either way, whatever the case may be, you can show regular looking alert dialogs, in quotation marks, alert dialogs, because they're in fact going to be Flash bars, also by using the Flash package. So let me show you how you can do that. Actually, I'm not going to type this code out at all, but I'm just going to copy and paste it from the written tutorial, because by now you have seen basically everything which I'm going to specify for this dialog. It's very similar to the snack bar, but let's cover the brief differences between showing snack bars, toasts, and dialogs. So again, you want to call show Flash, but you probably do not want to specify duration, because then the dialog would be hidden after, for example, 4 seconds, but dialogs call for being indefinitely displayed, so no duration should be specified. Then dialogs also need to have the persistent property set to false, so that they will be able to be dismissed by pressing the back button, right? That's the behavior of dialogs that should be just always there. With persistence set to false, you should also always use the flash.dialog constructor for constructing dialogs. It kind of makes sense. You are not constructing a Flash bar, but instead you're constructing a dialog. Then you can specify all kinds of different border radius, background colors if you want to, margins, just as previously on the Flash constructor, on the Flash widget. But here comes a quite interesting thing. For the child, you should always use Flash bar, again, unless you are brave to use something else, because Flash bar can be actually quite nicely configured to look like an alert dialog. So when we set a message on it and also specify actions, for example, OK, and then programmatically from within this action dismiss the dialog by calling controller, which is passed in from the builder, and then calling dismissed. What's going to happen is that we're actually going to have quite a believable alert dialog, which we can dismiss either by pressing this OK button, by clicking somewhere on the barrier, which is dimmed, or also by pressing the back button. And again, this flashbar widget is the exact same widget which we have used for the Snackbar. And that would be it for this tutorial. To go through it once again and to get all of the code, check out the written tutorial available from the link in the video description. And if you are serious about becoming a great Flutter developer who can build real apps for clients or at the job, go to flutter.education. Link is also in the video description, by the way, to get the top curated Flutter news and resources aimed at improving your app development career. Over there, you can also subscribe to my mailing list to get the best Flutter resources delivered weekly right into your inbox. And if you do not want to miss more tutorials like this about building toasts, dialogs, and snack bars, and all kinds of other things, all things Flutter, be sure to subscribe to this channel and also join Notification Squad by hitting the bell button to make sure you grow your Flutter skills, because here on ResoCoder, I am determined to provide you with the best tutorials and resources so that you will become an in-demand Flutter developer. If this video helped you with building these kinds of toasts, snack bars, and dialogues with the Flash library, give it a like and also share it with other developers who are surely going to benefit from it too. Leave a comment if you have anything to say, and see you in the next video.